As the generation that holds the key to the future, the young voters have always been one of the deciding factors in any general elections. A new mindset has emerged among them, where the emphasis is more on leaders who can deliver than any political affiliation. Is there any truth behind the perception that the younger generation rarely feels close to any political party, but would willingly cast their votes for good governance or for any person qualified to serve? Join us as we seek some insights on Viewpoints at 7.
Do you think this some Malaysians at a crossroads in terms of deciding what is best for them? You see what many people lately and empathize with them in terms of their rights and their needs. What differences can we draw from the government's transformation of Rakyat and also continuous progress of the nation politically, economically and socially?
Hello, welcome again to Viewpoints at 7. Young voters in the coming 13th general election. That's the focus of our show tonight. Joining us is Ms. Ng Yin Sin, Senior Vice President, Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute, or ASLI, who also is Director of Center for Public Policy Studies, CPPS. Welcome to the show, Ms. Ng.
Thank you so much, Hamdan, for having me here.
We are talking about young voters in the coming general election. Now, young adults who comprise a large section of newly registered voters are concerned about over the direction where the country is heading. What is the demographic profile of these young voters? Middle class, upper middle class, middle income, lower income group? Who are they?
You see, according to the Election Commission, 70% of the 4.2 million of new registered voters for this 13th general election are young voters ranging from the age of 21 to 40 years old. And we would say that they come from all walks of life and all segments of the society. Some of them come from the rural, urban, semi-rural area, but we would like to see them, categorize them from the education perspective. Some of them attended religious school, some vernacular school, some national type school, some international school. Some have been educated abroad, and some who have not stepped out of the country at all before. That's how the profiling is done. However, one common characteristics that we see in this group of young voters, or even new voters, or mostly all voters today, is that they share one common trait, is that they are all thinking voters, and most of them are not loyal party voters, because most of this group are not card-carrying members. Therefore, the way they are going to vote, it's not exactly going to be along party lines, racial lines, or religious lines. It will, their vote will mainly be given to the party or the coalition that they think can best represent their interests. They look at policy matters, they look at manifestos, but not exactly who their parents want them to vote for.
Now, Ms. Ng, it is a fact that the youth today are becoming more demanding and more politically independent. If we look at the psychographic profile of these young voters, how do they behave and what are the subjects that would appeal to them?
You see, this is a generation, I mean my generation, if I were to represent all the youth in Malaysia. We are a generation that have not experienced hunger. We are a generation that have not experienced war. We do not know what it takes should there be a blood shed in the country. And we believe that with the progress and the maturity of the mindset of Malaysians today, there will not be bloodshed, and nobody wants to see bloodshed in the country. Most young people like myself, we try very much to take a non-partisan stand. Many of us are not card-carrying members, as I said earlier. Therefore, there is no institutional alignment that people may take when they decide where they are going to cast their vote. According to the Center for Democracy and Election, 48% of young voters have not made up their mind in the upcoming general election, as in who they are going to vote for. However, if we look at the common phenomena, as in how people vote, on both political divide, there's always 30% of hardcore supporters on each side, and normally there will be a 40% middle ground people who cannot decide.
You mean fence-sitters?
Fence-sitters. Normally there are 40%, but according to the study, this time around there are still 48% of the people who have not decided. So we leave it to the people they themselves will know whether they are fence-sitters or people have already made up their mind.
Now, if we look at campus elections last year in public universities, pro-aspirasi, which is a group widely seen to be pro-establishment and pro-government, had a landslide victory of 18 out of 19 public universities. Now, some observers claim that the results are indicative of the youth mindset going forward into the 13th general election. What are your thoughts?
You see, first thing first, when we look at campus election, we need to first go in to see who are the candidates of the university leaders or student leaders that go into election. According to the survey done by Asia Foundation last year, 71% of the young people do not want to vote along racial lines. People want to go towards a multiculturalism, multi-ethnicity for this very diverse Malaysian culture. So going back to campus election, we first need to see the profile of the candidates, but secondly, whether this campus election is going to be representative of how the voting patterns of the young people will be in the upcoming election. I think it will remain as a question mark because we really do not know what happened, how many people turn up to vote, whether the voting turnout rate of people who actively participated in the campus election can be a good representation of the entire population of electorate of Malaysia in the upcoming general election. So what I would say is that whatever poll, whatever survey, remain as a poll and survey because it's being drawn from a sample. Yes, sample can be very scientifically correct, can be research correct in methodological term, but the real poll will still be on the 5th of May, and anything can happen between now and the 5th of May.
So we have to look at the actual results of the general election.
Yes, yeah.
You mentioned about the validity of all these surveys done by various groups.
Yes.
So until we have the results, then we know who the young voters actually vote for.
Yes, whatever the poll remains as a poll, whatever prediction remains as a prediction, the real poll is still on the 5th of May. And that's why we have to look at that.
Yeah. But if we look at these young voters, their profile being in the 30s and below age group, the young adults have enjoyed peace and harmony, religious freedom, economic, social and political stability in this country. Like you said earlier, none of them have experienced any, communal clashes, world war, or a clash like the May 13 incident. Is it safe to say that the racial card has never been an issue among the youth?
Whether the racial card has definitely been used. Religious cards has definitely been used, but if I were to represent the young people of Malaysia, I would say that young voters in Malaysia, or in fact more Malaysians, are rejecting racial politics. People today want to vote along policy lines, along ideological lines, and to reject extreme racism and religious perspective and beliefs in political parties.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going for a short break. You are with us on Viewpoints at 7. We will have more on young voters in the 13th general election after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We are talking about young voters in the coming general election. Ms. Ng, what are the issues that the young voters are concerned about?
Today, young people like me, number one, bread and butter issues. The increasingly high cost of living. It's something that people struggle to cope with. That's number one. More people, and you see, when we can put food on the table, the next thing is ideals. What do we believe in? What do we aspire to see? Therefore, it comes to issues of democracy, good governance, human rights issue, and all these are pertinent issues. And then coming back to day-to-day living, crime rate, the perceived increased corruption practices in the country, efficiency of the way things are being run. All these are pertinent issues that young people are looking for answers in the next general election.
Yeah. Now, standard cost of living, you mentioned, is one of the issues that has been discussed over and over again whenever we talk about the younger generation. Now, the youth of today will graduate from college with multiple degrees and may have difficulties finding jobs that they like to sustain a comfortable lifestyle. Do you think a political party that is concerned about creating job opportunities and addressing the human capital issues will have an edge in the coming election?
You see, whoever who's truthful and who work hard towards taking care for the well-being of the people will definitely be the favorable lot from the general electorate. However, if you look at whether the job market can take up the supply of university graduates that the university churn out every year, that's a separate matter altogether.
Yeah.
As we all know that education, knowledge and even data becomes obsolete by the time you graduate from university. Therefore, whether universities can provide the market with adequate workforce, with adequate knowledge and skills upon their graduation is actually the challenges of the education policy and the university. However, whether the market itself to be able to pay the graduates with the correct amount of salary to commensurate their qualification, their knowledge and their ability to work is a separate matter altogether. Having said all that, national policy, public policy that will encourage such market demands versus supply of graduates, it's very important as well. Therefore, macro and microeconomic policies and local economic policies together with human resource policy will determine all this and will then determine the outcome of the economic status of a particular country.
Are you also saying that the government of the day must have that ability to create jobs to address the needs of the country's human capital?
You see, in every healthy economies, there is just this amount of government intervention, which will be healthy in every free market capitalist society. Government does play a very important role in terms of policy setting. However, the market itself must be healthy enough to respond to the need of the local economy and also to ensure that market is growing. So it takes two to tango. It's public policy, it's government governance, it is also the ability of the market to respond and to react to market needs.
But our unemployment rate is only, what, 2.7%?
Yes, that is in fact a very encouraging figure. The government has done quite a lot to ensure that unemployment rate doesn't increase year by year or year on year as per a lot of other mature economy in the world. But having said that, we shouldn't be just complacent as in what we already have. It is always good to work towards a better Malaysia, providing better life for all Malaysia.
Yeah. Transparency and corruption are another two major aspects that shape the mindset of young voters. What are your thoughts on this?
Definitely, nobody wants to see or nobody wants to live in a corrupted country. Malaysians want to feel proud about being a Malaysian, and all needs to play a part. If you want to talk about signing the pledge for integrity and things like that, yeah, we commend whoever who signed it, and we urge the other party who have not signed it to sign it. What we Malaysians would like to see is that, yes, PM Najib and the Barisan Nasional Coalition has signed the Integrity Pact. We hope that all parties will do so. But in fact, from my perspective, in fact, all candidates who were nominated last Saturday should sign the pledge. Just to ensure that free and fair elections can happen in Malaysia.
You practice what you preach. You walk the talk.
Yes.
All right. Now, when Datuk Seri Najib took office 4 years ago, what do you think Barisan Nasional has achieved in terms of meeting the needs of the youth or the younger generation?
You see, one thing about PM Najib, he is perceived or seen to be a listening Prime Minister. He listened to the voices of the people, and he appears to be a Prime Minister who is very receptive of a new reform agenda. And that's why we have seen a lot of policy changes, even though some would say as a slow opening up of the government. But what we can see is that these are baby steps towards liberalizing a lot of our policy. And we need to give any government or any policy time to change, because no policy is going to be perfect. So consistent reforms, consistent obtaining of feedback and comments from people and then making relevant changes is actually a good trait that we should appreciate. But as to whether the changes come as fast and as quick as people want to see is a separate matter, because public policy making and decision making in a democratic society does need to take its own pace.
And some of these programs have longer gestation period.
Yes.
Not immediate.
Yeah.
It's continuous.
Sometimes things cannot happen just overnight, as in today I decide that the office can wear jeans to work. Tomorrow I decide, no, everybody needs to be wearing a corporate attire to work. Public policy making doesn't happen like that.
Not a flip-flop decision, you're saying?
It cannot, number one, it cannot be a flip-flop decision. It cannot be an overnight decision. It needs a lot of dialogue sessions, buy-in from the public sector, and all key stakeholders, and most importantly, the people and the civil society.
Okay, we talk about what Datuk Najib has achieved the past 4 years in terms of programs for the youth and the younger generation. What about the Pakatan Pembangkang? What have they achieved from their last election manifesto in terms of meeting the needs of the youth or the younger generation?
You see, perhaps it is also because the absence or the inability, to put in a better sense, that the Pakatan Rakyat were not able to make policy changes at the federal level. Therefore, they have been quite an effective opposition in terms of checking, performing an audit to what the government is doing.
Can't they effect changes in the states that they are controlling?
Well, as I said, changes takes time. However, being a credible opposition takes more than just complaining, more campaigning, and more than just engaging the people. We have not seen a shadow cabinet. We have not seen exactly a shadow budget from the Pakatan Rakyat. And all these are actually important milestones that a credible opposition must achieve. Well, as we all know that the structural system, the structural makeup of Barisan Nasional Coalition and Pakatan Rakyat collaboration in a more accurate term are very different fundamentally. Barisan Nasional with 13 component parties have got one goal to move forward. They believe in the same thing. They subscribe to the same party line. However, for Pakatan Rakyat, they have got 3 main parties forming the collaboration. However, they are not yet a formal coalition registered with, the registrar.
All right, Ms. Ng, we are going for another break. Stay tuned with us on Viewpoints at 7. Welcome back. Our guest is Ms. Ng Yin Sin of ASLI. We're talking about young voters in the coming general election. Ms. Ng, if we look at the BN's manifesto or Aku Janji and Pakatan Pembangkang's manifesto on youth development, what are your thoughts on this and how concerned do you think young voters are about the manifestos?
You see, if we compare 2 manifestos on its own, on a very broad view, I personally would think that the Pakatan Manifesto are slightly more left-leaning. Barisan Nasional's manifesto are more centrist, and the main differences between these 2 manifestos are that Barisan Nasional seems to empower the people more in terms of their plans in their manifesto. However, the Pakatan Rakyat's manifesto focuses on giving more aids, aids, help to a particular segment of the society that they deem are more important. So in a nutshell, Barisan goes for a broad-based focus. Pakatan goes for selected focus in most areas of their manifesto. As to whether young voters feel that manifesto is going to determine where they are going to cast their vote, yes, that is definitely so. However, the young voters today are also looking at personalities of the candidate who are standing in their kawasan. Because as I said earlier, this generation of voters are not card-carrying voters. They are not too party-leaning or party ideological leaning. They are more issue-focused. They want to look for, they want candidates or political leaders whom they can look up to as role models to represent them.
So party is immaterial?
Almost immaterial at the urban area, I would say, but at the rural area, it is still very diverse, I mean, in terms of the view, mainly depending on their exposure to alternative media, to the online sphere, to the social media, and also from the background teaching and then how they're being brought up. Yeah.
We heard about different school of thoughts on the kingmakers in this general election. Some say the Chinese are the kingmakers, some say the majority of the population, the Malays, are the kingmakers, some say the fence-sitters are the kingmakers, and some say the new voters are the kingmakers. What do you think?
You see, if we want to say that the new voters are going to be the kingmaker, then Selangor would be a good area to watch, because Selangor registered over 600,000 of new voters for this upcoming election. And whether and the verdict as to whether young and new voters who have just recently registered will be the kingmaker, we will know it after the 5th of May.
Why the sudden rise in Selangor, Ms. Ang?
I don't know. Maybe more people are becoming more politically involved. People want to have a say in who runs the country. People just want to be... Perhaps it's just the entire evolution of society, that as the society mature, as more people are better informed, better educated, people then want to play a participatory role in the entire society, community makeup for the nation. And as to whether who can be the kingmaker, I think you have laid down all potential possibilities as in who can be the kingmaker, but I think you left out one thing. The independent candidates could be a kingmaker as well. We have seen the highest recorded number of independent candidates in this upcoming general election, as high as 84 of them as of Saturday last week. Whether how many decide to pull out, how many decide to throw their support to either coalition is something that we shall wait and see.
How important would be economic issues to these young voters, Ms. Ang? Above everything else.
It is going to be very important. For example, people like me, I don't think with my salary and many of my peers, we can afford to buy a small apartment within the Klang Valley. And that's why I think that's why PM Najib has initiated the One Prima house for affordable house and affordable living for first-time home buyer, for people below a certain salary range. I think all these are good initiatives. But again, more needs to be done. We need to give whoever the government time to execute all these good policies that have been put in place.
Now, in terms of making decisions at the ballot boxes, what would your advice be to young voters in terms of deciding what is best for the country moving forward?
Well, giving advice to young people would sound like I'm insulting them, because this is a thinking generation who most of them are educated, who have got their own mindset, who have got their own peace of mind and their own stance with their very strong critical thinking skills. However, what is important is that with the availability of news and information all over the place, I mean, beyond the conventional, traditional media platform, there's alternative media where all sorts of information and news are available out there. It is then pertinent and important for the young people to be able to sift through all these big basket of information, as in what is correct, what are facts, what are spinning, what are propaganda by both parties. Manifesto needs to be well read, digested by everybody. Personalities of your candidate standing in your kawasan must be properly vetted, I would say. So therefore, it's important for people, electorates like ourselves, to take the extra set to just look beyond how many flags are there in my area, how many ceramah or how many people attend a particular ceramah to determine the popularity of that particular candidate. But go back to basic. What can the candidate offer? How best will the candidate service us, the rakyat, if they win in this election?
So that means the young voters must look at the key points that touch on their needs and the future of the country before casting their vote on election day. With that, Ms. Ng, thank you very much for being on Viewpoints at 7.
Thank you so much, Handan, for having me here.
All right, on that note, we thank Ms. Ng for being on the show. Feel free to send us your suggestions and comments at news@ntv7.com.my. We'll be back tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. for more hot topics on general election. I'm Hamdan Amir together with the team at Viewpoints at 7. Thank you for watching. Good night.